Today, I want to reveal 6 mistakes that I've never told anybody on this channel that really affected this business when I first opened it. It affected the future of this business, it affected our finances, our ability to work harder, not smarter, and the general health of the business. And I want to be transparent and show you these 6 mistakes so you never have to make them yourself. Number 5 is probably the worst one I've ever made, but let's get into it today. Thank you for coming back to this channel. I'm always happy to see you and really appreciate you tickling my fancy for the next 10 to 11 minutes. We're going to see what this video boils down to, and let's avoid these mistakes together for our next business. Mistake number 1. I started this business with very little money. Now, I did have a business loan and my own personal savings, but it still wasn't enough for this type of business. When you start a business like this, there's so much that goes into the renovations, the shelving, the inventory, the signage, the technology to run the till systems, that I thought my $80,000 would last me forever, and that simply wasn't the case. I was down to nothing when the store opened, so I had very little money to invest into inventory. So when people first came in, they would look around and say, what's in here to buy? There's very little selection. I'm not used to shopping at a store that's this empty. And that is the silent killer of a business. When people don't say anything, they just leave and they never come back. And I promise you, a lot of those people that came in the first few days for the grand opening have never returned because of that poor first impression. So make sure you do your research and start with enough capital when you build a business, because the first year, the first 2 years, 3 years, you will not be making any money, and that's where the initial capital will float you. So don't do what I did. Start with enough money, do the proper research. As you can see, my store is a lot more full now. We even have our employee of the month. Okay. Number 2 was poor marketing, plain and simple. When you open a business like this, it has to be an event. It has to create a feeling. It has to have emotion in the neighborhood. This business needs to be marketed correctly, just like any other business. People have to know. You have to create a buzz. You have to get the word out there. You have to build the space in public. And what I mean by that is everything that's happening in your space, in your business, you want to post it, create a story. Tell your story on why you're opening this business. And this is why I got into my own marketing business. I believe that I can help small businesses succeed, especially in this type of industry. You can see our brand new website for my business in the description. I'll even put it here. It's just brickandmarketmedia.com. So we specialize in building small brick and mortar businesses grow on their social media platforms. The extent that I was doing for our marketing for our store was just taking pictures of new products every single week, and it was getting no engagement. People do not wake up and wonder what new product you brought in store. They do not wake up and wonder what food you created today. You really need to create an emotion with the post, because the product of you posting is the reaction that it gets, not the post itself. And I wasn't doing any of that, and legitimately no one knew exactly what we were doing and why we were doing it when we first opened. So I learned from my mistakes. I really amped up our marketing, started creating more stories, more reels, more personal reactions, did giveaways, started featuring customers, and things changed for us. Things really picked up with those small little adjustments, and then we got more advanced with paid ads, etc. But that's a whole nother video. Mistake number 3. I was trying to do everything myself. There were points in times and stretches of weeks where Felicia couldn't come in at all during the week because she had a full-time teaching job. And I was doing everything from the till system, the bookkeeping, the social media, the stocking of the shelves, the, bringing new product in, dealing with salespeople. It was insane. And yes, I could save some money, but things were not being done correctly, and I was burnt out. There was a time and period where I would literally go home at 8 at night, fall asleep right then and there without even eating anything. And that's a whole nother story based on health and another problem in and of itself. But you cannot function in your business if you're trying to do everything yourself. There's things that people are much better at than you, and you need to outsource. And I learned that with this channel, with this store, with my marketing agency. There are things that you simply have to allocate to others. Just because you can save a dime doesn't mean a thing if your business isn't operating correctly and with the best people for those positions. An employee may help you grow your business more than you ever thought you could because they bring in a different mindset. They bring in a different perspective on things you've been doing the whole time, and maybe you're doing them simply wrong, and they can see that from a different point of view. So don't burn out, hire somebody. Mistake number 4. I went to the opposite end of the spectrum and started purchasing like crazy. I came from nothing, and then I had good sales, good revenue, and we were making profit. I started buying legitimately everything. Any salesperson that recommended a new product to me, I would buy cases of it without even looking into the product. If they said it sold, I would buy it. Every salesperson will come to you and say a product is selling. They're not going to tell you otherwise. They're not going to tell you it's not a good product. So we would have cases and cases of inventory sitting around. We were truly, by the definition, over inventory. And that's okay sometimes with, clothing and physical products. But with food, there's a certain thing that is called expiry, and things were expiring very, very quickly on me. Well, not any quicker, but just it felt like that because we had so much of it, and produce just going bad. It was a nightmare in and of itself because I was buying so freely. I had so much faith that the store was going to be busy at all times that we lost quite a bit of money that stretch of time. And it was a hard lesson to learn, and you really have to do your inventory management. Mistake number 5. This one really hurt because I still think about this one to this day. I didn't negotiate my lease at all. I was so new to the business, I thought if this is the lease on paper, these are the terms, this is how it is for every tenant. It was my first business, my first lease, and I didn't negotiate the amount in rent, the amount in renovations that I would have to do, any protection for my future, any escape in case, things went the other way. And thankfully, I'm still standing here. I'm happy to say that we're still in a stable business. But I spent so much money renovating someone else's space without any incentives, without any allowance. I didn't get a discount on the rent, even though I spent so much renovating it for the landlord who, has a fixed, completely renovated space if I do decide to leave. Because technically, when you spend so much renovating a landlord space, they're supposed to give you a rent incentive where the rent is lower. And I didn't do any of that. I didn't ask for any restrictions, like someone can open a grocery store in the same plaza. I didn't ask for any sort of escape, which would really help if things went south. You can add an escape clause. There's so many things that you can negotiate that I was so naive to, and I didn't negotiate any of it. And to this day, who knows what I could have saved on my monthly rent, or if they would have, given me an allowance to build the space to the way I wanted. And that's just something I live with now. It's fine, you know, we have a very good relationship with our landlord and there's nothing to complain about. But that's something I really hammer home. Negotiate everything. Everything is negotiable. Every sales price, every lease is negotiable. If not, you have the ability to walk away from anything. You can do anything you want. You can negotiate with anybody. They don't hold you to anything. So take that as a life lesson. And last but not least, this took me way too long to realize. Mistake number 6 is so simple. My front signage for my store was absolutely terrible. Like I said, I had no money left to start, so I really cheaped out on the sign. I basically had someone take a plastic backing and I threw my logo up, and that was my signage. I would guarantee you 90% of people driving by this store had no idea what this store was or was all about, because the signage was, you couldn't read it. It was illegible, if that's a word. But I took 3 years to actually be like, you know what, this has to change. And we actually got a full, you know, bold black sign that you could see from across the whole parking lot into the road. Anybody driving by, it lights up at night. Invest in the first impression of your store, which is your signage. If you have to, you know, buy a cheaper till system, I really suggest it, even if you have to do without one of your coolers, invest in a good sign that you can see from space, because that is what people honestly look at. Anytime someone walks by my store, they look up, they're like, oh, this is what the store is. If they do not know you and your sign sucks, they will not care. No one will come in. Very simple. DeMarco's Market, local produce, that's it. Local grocery, something simple like that is all I needed. But unfortunately, I just didn't think the right way when I started. So those are the 6 mistakes that I hope you avoid. If you can, try to avoid at least half of them and you'll be on a different universe than I am right now. And if you do make them on a smaller level. It'll save you a lot of money and time. That's all for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching.